Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Authors Up, our favorite place to be at 7 p.m. on a Sunday evening. You know, I was sitting here and I thought, gee, it would be nice to come on and be very business-like and just, say, tonight's episode will be about, but that is just not us. And let me
No, it's not.
as
It's not.
much as we have a wonderful show planned for you, the pre-show is always better. Let me just put it that way.
We probably need to start recording those.
I know.
So,
I'm telling you,
As clips, our little clips. Yeah, we can do that.
when you see us come on and we're coming on and we're smiling and we look like we've been having a party, it's because we have. And tonight is one of those nights. I mean, we have not just an amazing guest, but her story. It's a memoir, and it is absolutely just stick around. That's all I can say. Just stick around. This is not one you're going to want to miss, and I don't want you kicking yourself saying, "Oh, I should have been on that show." No, you make sure that you phone a friend, share whatever it is you have to do, because this is going to be a night that you're going to remember with a story that you will not soon forget. So let's get started this evening and let's see what my co-hosts have to say. Good evening, Ms. Ruth Griffin. How are you this evening? Tell us.
all right. I am well. I am happy to be here, and I am just here to welcome our viewers and our listeners.
All
That's
right.
it.
All right. Nothing wrong with
Yep.
that.
No.
What about you, Miss Victoria?
I'm happy and peppy and birthday with
God.
love.
Not a song.
Okay.
Pray
I'm pretty
before
good.
people,
I'm
man.
pretty good. How about you? I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Just glad to be here with you guys once again, my bronze girls.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad that you are feeling good tonight,
Yes,
and Ruth is
yes, I
feeling good. I'm feeling good tonight, and I think we should probably get started as we usually do with every program, and that is to give you our week in review. You always like to keep up with what we're doing and how we're getting it done. So tonight is no different, and I think I'm going to go first tonight. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
go
good.
for it.
I had a good week in spite of everything. And I say in spite of everything because, like everybody else, I had my challenges, and things happen because life happens. But it was a fun week until the end. But up in the beginning of the week, I had a friend bring me lunch. We sat down, we fellowshipped, and she had my favorite soup, and she had made this great sandwich and everything. We hadn't visited with each other in a long time. So food and fellowship, is always
good. Yes, ma'am.
So I really had fun doing that. And then two other gracious women later on in the week, I had lunch with them, and we enjoyed ourselves and sat and talked and just had a wonderful time. But then at the very end, I thought, I'm going to call my girlfriend and let her know, what a great week I had, and remembered that she was gone.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's kind of my first real tug that my friend wasn't here anymore.
Right.
But I talked to her anyway.
Right.
And I told her all about it and all about the fun that I had. And she was called and, checked on her daughter and did things like that. But all in all, it was a good week because I'm still here.
Amen.
And I still have great friends, and I still have we have wonderful listeners and viewers like Leah Forney, who has joined us tonight, and Angie O, who's come in on the South Carolina connection. And all in all, God let me know that I was not alone, that He was with me, that everything would be okay. So that was my week in review. Good week.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
What about you, Victoria? I think you're next up.
Yep. Well, it was an interesting week indeed in parentdom. um, I actually had to literally let go of my middle baby. Middle baby got a contract from the interviews or audition she had done, and so she left yesterday to go to Portland, Oregon, and she'll be traveling through a few states, and she'll be performing with a little touring group. And I'm very proud of her, very proud of her. But it was tough. It was tough. I went to the airport. I was like, my baby's going to the West Coast. Oh Lord, Jesus. Y'all know me. You know it don't take much for me to cry anyway. So, but you get them to a point where you train them, you love on them, you instill in them the love of God, and then you have to let go because she's truly doing what she is called to do. And I knew that at some point, though the calling is going to take all of them different places that I may not be able to be there. So I have to let God let go. I had to let go, and it's a little tough. It's a little tough, I admit. But she's going to be okay. She's covered. God has her, and He loves her more than I ever could. Every time I get a little, I say, Lord, you love her more than I ever could. So you take care of her. And we have her on Life 360, little app where I can tell where she's at all times. And I tell her, keep your phone charged up. She's going to be all right. She's learning about life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my week, and then I had a nice lunch today with some friends. So the beginning of the week has started out very nicely.
There you go.
Good, very good. What about you, Ruth?
Well, you know me, baby watch continues. So I've got 43 days left until the Samantha's due date. So,
wow.
Is she counting as much as you're counting?
I don't know. I didn't ask. Maybe because every time I talk to her, she just says, I feel tired. Like, I get it. I get it. So, yeah, we'll see. And apart from that, just the baby shower is in less than 6 days. And
All right.
I will be happy once it's done. I mean, I love to attend stuff, not necessarily plan it. So, yeah, that and just working my business. So doing publishing and trying to get my writing together so that when I launch later this year, it'll be good. So,
all right.
yeah, just keeping busy.
Yeah,
Good.
very good, very good.
Yeah. So, we were going to talk about the book club.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Okay.
At the end, maybe.
now we can say it right now because we always have access to social media and can put something out there. So you know what? Everybody who is on the line, everybody who is listening, everybody who is viewing, there is going to be an Authors Up book club, and it is going to be starting the first Sunday in March. So next week, we're going to do a replay of that author and that book, and so you can catch up and know what's going on. But be sure that you tune in because you never know what is going to happen on Authors Up. But you know now that in March, we are beginning the Authors Up book club.
Yes.
Yay me.
Yay. And look out for your social media stuff so you'll know what the book is and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. We'll tell you more if we have time tonight, but just be on the lookout, okay? Because it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Okay.
All right. I think that was the best. That was what?
All of 20 seconds?
Okay.
I did good. Hey, I did good.
All right. Yay. Leah said, nice. Yeah. Yes. I'm not even going to say nothing about that. I'm just going to go ahead.
No, we might as well say it. The book that we are reading is The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. So,
okay. The Go-Giver.
But it is a short book. So you should be, honestly, if you started tomorrow, I'll give you tomorrow to go get the book. You'd have it done by Friday. So,
right.
And then a week to go. But do follow us on social media so you can get more information.
All right. You heard it here. The Go-Giver is our first book. Yay.
fun book, great information, great author, great interview that we had with him. So
Yep.
be sure that you tune in next week, and that'll help to catch you up as well.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Now
Right.
for tonight.
Now we can move forward. Go ahead.
Yes.
Thanks
I'm
for
just
the
excited
reminder.
because I love this. I love this book and I love this author already. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Lola Allin is a former commercial airline transport pilot, flight instructor, and flight examiner, as well as a scuba dive master. She is also an award-winning author and photographer whose work has appeared in many notable publications in print and online, including the National Post, Globe and Mail, and National Geographic. Her professional aviation affiliations are extensive as she promotes the role of women in aviation and encourages them to seek careers in that field. Lola is an adventurer who has lived in Mexico for 3 years and has explored more than 65 countries in depth. Oh my goodness. She says she's tracked in Canada, Nepal, Peru, other places, and crossed deserts on camel. To share her adventures and photographs and to provide a showcase for other photographers and inspire others to travel, she created the Armchair Traveler Travelogue in 2017. She's personally narrated PowerPoints that include information on Australia, Chile, England, the Maya. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to stop reading now so that we can bring her up. We'll be talking with Lola Allin about her book, Highway to the Sky, An Aviator's Journey, after this brief break. We'll be right back.
And we're back.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. We are so happy to have you, Lola. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been smiling since we started talking at 10 to 11. Yes,
As we are too.
I love
My
you.
face already hurts. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Usually I start by asking the author to tell us about your book, but I wanted to provide a couple of quotes because I think that this sums up the book perfectly. At one point, you say, whoever made the rules for girls is stupid. And then in your conversation with your mom, she explained, society encourages men to be the best they can be. Society gives them approval to be scientists, professors, physicians, lawyers, and pilots. Her voice rises. She speaks faster. Society says women should be happy as wives and mothers. But if we must work, they let us be nurses, teachers, secretaries, or stewardesses. And that is not the route that you took. So, Lola, tell us about the book.
It's not. My mother was discouraging. My father was particularly discouraging. In fact, he was dismissive. He simply said, girls don't fly airplanes. Now, in part, that could be construed as true because this was 1962. There were female pilots. Females have been flying since 1910. The first licensed female was licensed in 1910. Interestingly enough, the first licensed Black woman was 1921.
Wow.
Bessie Coleman. And she couldn't be taught in America. They wouldn't teach her in America.
Wow.
So she got on the boat. Her brothers had flown in World War I in France, and they said, "Oh no, they teach women to fly in France." So she got on the boat. She, traveled across the Atlantic Ocean to get her license. So Bessie Coleman, the first licensed Black female pilot in the world, which is
Wow.
amazing. My father was also in World War II. There were women flying. Now they were categorized as civilian volunteers, which meant they could just be, tossed out afterwards back home where they belonged. But he was in the military, so he could have been a little nicer about it, but he had his own issues as well with women. My mom was discouraging, and as a 16-year-old, I really took it to heart and thought, Mom, why aren't you supporting me? What's wrong with you? And I wasn't ready to listen to her. And what I think she was really trying to say was that it might be a whole lot easier if you, stop bucking the system, just kind of flow with it, and, pick a career that you like. Maybe, teach English. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just didn't feel like teaching English. We need teachers, right? Of course we do. I just didn't feel like doing that.
Right.
So, and she was right. I mean, had I been an abnormal 16-year-old girl, I would have listened to her. It was only later that I realized that she did have my best interests. But it was difficult. She was right. When I was taking my lessons as a private, like getting my private pilot license, my commercial pilot license, people and the flight schools were welcoming. But of course, it's a fairly low profit margin profession or business, and so of course they're going to welcome you unless there's some physical reason why you can't get an aviation medical. They're going to welcome you. And it was only when I actually quit as my parents and grandparents said, my perfectly good job at the bank to become a commercial pilot. And that was when I started taking jobs from men. I mean, remember, it's 1980. It wasn't common. Maybe 2 to 3% of commercially employed pilots were maybe 2 to 3 were female. And I say commercial pilots who are commercially employed. So, for example, you've read the book. My first husband was actually very encouraging. Our marriage was crumbling, and he thought, maybe we can do something together to kind of cement us together. Because though he was a bully and though he was an alcoholic, he was also one of the most exciting, dynamic, interesting, vivacious, larger than life people. And he was a great father. He just wasn't a great husband for me, or perhaps I wasn't a great wife for him. I think that's also perhaps not very subservient. No, not me. Anyway, so he also got his private license and his commercial license, but he had an excellent job with the government, so he didn't quit his job, but he's still officially a commercial pilot. So when we look at the statistics, yes, there might be commercial pilots, but are they flying commercially? And in fact, the numbers just recently the most recent numbers released by the Federal Aviation Authority in America are that at a worldwide average of female airline transport pilots is 4.7%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with some exceptions, which is pretty interesting, actually. The top 4 were Air India, and then another airline in India, and then Ireland. Yeah, Ireland and Iceland. Now, it's not that they have. So Iceland, for example, does not have more female pilots than America. But by percentage in that company, they have like 11.7%. So America, of course, has the most female commercial pilots employed, as just by numbers.
Right.
Not by percentage.
So, and I'll be honest, I absolutely loved your book. Thank
you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You started off, I feel like, just running, and then you just kept right on going. I love, and we'll talk about this more, your Ode to Joy. I absolutely love that story. But I feel like, even as you kept going and you mentioning more, as a female, I was upset with the stuff that you went through, but, I understood you were laying the groundwork, number one, for what you wanted to do, the life you wanted to live, but also the ceiling you were breaking at the
Right.
same time.
Right.
So, I honestly, I just kudos,
Thank
kudos
you.
for the life that you've lived and the
Yes.
book that you've written. I wanted to share that, and I wanted to ask then. You know, you brought up your husband, um, who encouraged you, but also wasn't necessarily, you know, the best for you. So, how do you, you know, the irony of that? You know, this was something that you knew you wanted to do at 5 years old,
Yeah.
and it comes back, you
And
know,
he
through him.
encouraged me. Yeah. It is a little ironic. I think that the best explanation I can get, the way I understand it, is that what I saw in him was the real thing. He was a wonderful person,
Mhm.
larger than life, a great guy. I mean, he was a water ski instructor, a downhill ski instructor, a hang glider instructor. He was just a really interesting person. He read the coolest books that didn't really interest me. But again, that's what kind of interested me in him, that he read these books that I'd never heard of
That he read. He could read, right?
read. That's right. He was really a cool guy. So, but he had these demons from his own father. And once I realized that his father was also a closet alcoholic and very bullying to my mother-in-law, I realized that I was in the same pattern. And it didn't, none of this really surfaced until we had a son, our first child. And then there was no one day where he changed, but he just became a lot more possessive.
Mm.
And I'm reminded of I can't remember the singer, Janis Joplin. Freedom's only, nothing left to lose. And now that he had stuff to lose, a wife and a child and
Right.
our new house, I think he became just very, very possessive and way too possessive for me.
Mhm.
Right.
And of course, I rebelled. He didn't like that. Yeah. Anyway, we became good friends. I mean, we always were friends, so we became good friends. Not that we, hung out together after
Right.
we divorced, but it was a very amicable. Like you've read the book, so there's this scene where we go to the lawyer, and the lawyer is astonished that we're both there together with our son, drawing up a separation agreement.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, wait.
This is not how it's done.
Supposed to
Yeah,
be
that in
talking
itself is amazing.
yeah,
Right.
and he
Yeah.
was great, and he said, "Well, all right, but if you start arguing, I'm not going to work with either of you. You'll have to
Right.
you both have to find a new lawyer or two lawyers, since no one else will probably agree with." But he agreed to that. But we had known him for a while, and he knew us, and I don't know if he was surprised that we were divorcing or not, but he knew us enough, I guess, that it was so weird. He probably just had to agree to it, I guess. And we seemed to be getting along, Yeah, which was strange. As I say, he was a good guy with some demons,
Yeah.
and an alcoholic, a dependent personality, which is unfortunate. But he
Yeah.
did stop drinking after not after during his second marriage.
Okay.
That was great. That was
Yeah.
great. And he was not violent with her. And that was really one of the things I was so concerned with, was
Right.
breaking that cycle. And
Right.
I didn't know for sure, but I really thought that his violence or his threats of violence would escalate. He'd become, more short-tempered, more likely to hit me. What I didn't know, and maybe that would have persuaded me to stay longer. What I didn't know was those first few months after separation is when a woman's life, usually, I'll say woman, not always, but that's when the partner was more likely to retaliate very aggressively. And that's
Right.
exactly what he did, about 4 weeks after I left him. And it just seemed, I still think it was a little out of character, but anyway, we got over that. So
Good.
Sure.
yeah, but and then he stopped. His second wife was just astonished that had ever happened. So I felt I was really gratified by that. I don't know if I presume I had something to do with it, but it was a wake-up call for him, I guess, as well.
I think when you left, that's what might have been the catalyst for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I have to say that just honestly, when I got to the end of the book, I was like, oh, okay, so what happened with Paul and Jeannie, and how did she meet Jeff and all that other?
Don't take my question. That's my question.
Woo! Well,
So-
nobody's asked Jeff. Somebody said, "Oh, is Scott? Is Scott your boyfriend? I mean, your husband now?"
Right,
He was almost perfect. I mean, he was great.
right.
But how did I meet Jeff? Well, that's really a good question that no one has asked. So his wife,
Well, that was gonna be one of my questions. So go ahead. You can't leave me hanging like that.
his first wife was and is a friend of mine.
Mhm.
And she'd say, "You and Jeff would be so perfect for each other." It's like, what? It's like, are you kidding? She said, "Yeah, you've got the same sense of humor and you're both really smart." It's like, oh, okay. Anyway, so fast forward a few years and I'm living in Mexico. I come back home and she said, "Oh, guess what? We separated." It's like, ooh, I always thought he was pretty cute. And I'm like, run right out to his house, but I couldn't remember where they lived. They lived way out in the country somewhere. So it's like, okay, fine. So I was back in Canada to go back to university, and maybe maybe 4 weeks into university, he called me. She gave him my telephone number.
Nice.
I know, isn't that amazing? So I already knew him. He was married to a friend of mine. There was no hanky-panky going on. They were, I thought, well, I wasn't sure that they were happily married because that's kind of an odd thing to say. You and Jeff are so perfect for each other. That seems like an odd thing to say. But,
Right.
I didn't think they'd separate. They had 3 youngish children. And, but finally it was, I guess it was, sometimes
Yeah.
they got married young. They met at university. It happens, you get a bit older and you love your kids and you love your partner, but maybe it's just not working.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's something out there. And again, they also had a very amicable separation as well.
So that's awesome. That's good to
Yeah,
know. That's
she
good
lives
to know.
around the corner from us.
You know what? You I just have to say this. You have lived a spicy life. And I love every minute of it.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit because you have spicy aside, you have lived a incredible life. We get to see, the 30-year span that you put in the book. At what point did you decide I need to write that down? And did you write before that?
I just wrote sort of niche articles. When I was living in Mexico, I wrote for Mundo Maya, which means Maya world. I wrote a couple pieces about one of the religious icons, Mashimon, also known as San Simon or Saint Simon. And
Okay.
I also wrote about the family with whom I live in Belize, in southwestern Belize. They're a Mopan Maya, that refers to their language. So I wrote about them as well. And they're one of about, the jury seems to still be out, but somewhere between 21 and 28 Maya languages that are under the umbrella of the Proto-Mayan language.
Oh,
So
wow.
some are closely related. So like Mopan is close to the Yucatecan and Lacandon. So I wrote about that. I wrote about locally, I wrote about local things. I submitted a piece to the Globe and Mail called "Do You Like to Sleep Alone?" And it was about my stay with the Maasai in Kenya. And yeah, so I did this really cool bare bones safari. And one of the options was to stay with a local family. And I thought, well, that's great. I want to do that. And the owner was married to a Maasai woman. So I said, well, that's great. I'd like to stay in a Maasai manyatta. And he said, oh, wow, I'm not sure. He said, really, the offer was to stay in a Kikuyu home. And the Kikuyu have long been pastoralists. They're farmers. They live in houses like we do. Basically, right? It's running water, blah, blah, blah. But a Maasai manyatta are very short, thatched roof, mud walls. There's a little space inside for baby animals, cows and goats.
Wait a minute.
And,
Wait.
and then we're surrounded on the outside by there's a fence. So there's the village. Then there's a fence of thorn bushes, and then there's the cattle, and then there's another fence of thorn bushes. Anyway, so we got it arranged, and it was great. And my host, who was going back to stay with, there were two other travelers on the trip. They were from Australia, and they were camping by the river. So he was going to stay with them and that night. But before he left, he said, "Do you like to sleep alone?" It's like, what? It's like, well, I knew he wasn't coming on to me because he was going back to the river. It was like, no, I usually sleep with my husband, but he's in Canada. So I was all alone. This is a trip I did on my own. He said, "Oh, okay, so fine." So he said goodbyes. Anyway, so in the evening, everybody's gathered in the hut where I am, because even though I'm there to observe them, I'm like, wow, this is a white woman here, right? Wow. So it's, they sing and they dance. They were just awesome. And near the end, my host's brother, so Jonathan was his English name and Jackson was the other guy, he says to me, and he's sitting on the bed beside me. And the bed, by the way, is a stretched cowhide. Anyway, it's very, very comfortable, actually. He says, of course, "Do you like to sleep alone?" It's like, oh boy, he's not going anywhere. So I'm thinking, oh, come on, Lola, think. You studied these people. Oh, yeah. Maasai women don't sleep alone. They sleep when they first get married. They sleep with, of course, they have sex with their husband, but then they go to their own bedroom.
Okay.
And that's loosely, it's just a different platform with a little bit of a wall. They're all open onto the central area. But then afterwards, they have children. The wife sleeps with the children. The man sleeps alone. So I was like, So I said, no, I like sleeping with my husband, but he's not here. So who do you have in mind? I hope he's not saying, "Oh, I will." But no, very honorable, just a lovely, lovely man. He said, "Silali." Well, so it's all prearranged, right? So this cute little girl hops up and presents herself, and you don't, you touch them, but to greet a Maasai child, you pat them on the head. So she's leaning forward. So I pat her on the head. Anyway, so we hop in bed. She falls asleep immediately. And I had a great sleep too.
I thought you were going to say one of them goats or chickens or
That's what
I was waiting on. I was like, wait a minute. You said they was inside too. So
it is. But so you go in. So the Maasai woman builds the houses, and they're fairly tall. They're part of the Nilotic group, so the Kalenjin. They're very tall and slender. The Kenyan runners that win the Olympics. Okay, so So, but still, you're building a house, and they don't have ladders. So the house is maybe 6 feet tall, and so you first go in, and the first thing you see is a little opening, and that's where the baby cow or sheep or goat would be, and at night there's a little fence, or if the animal's sick, right? And then you do a right-hand turn down a little narrow hallway, and then you come into the open area where the Maasai themselves sleep. It's very comfortable. It's a little bit smoky, well, maybe a lot bit smoky, but they have a little fire in there, and there's not many windows. But I had a great time. I loved it. So that was one of my favorite niche pieces. So I'd done that, but I hadn't written anything maybe longer than 10,000 words. And so it was a leap for sure. And to maybe start with a memoir maybe wasn't, maybe it wasn't the best choice, but that's what I wanted to write about, and to reach other females and men, women, because in changing the way we think about women in non-traditional jobs, I think we're already on side, right, ladies?
Yeah.
It's, in the younger generation that we need to persuade that yes, we're competent. And so when I go to schools or service clubs, I don't know, Probus, Rotary, Kiwanis, the clubs like that, I want to talk to men and women, boys and girls, and talk about my story and the other stories. So
Right.
It's I'm glad I did it. I'm getting a lot of speaking engagements and keynote
That's
speakers,
awesome.
book
All
clubs.
right.
Yeah, and they like the adventure part too. I mean, some people want to hear about my trekking across Baffin Island, but they also want to buy a book. So
Right.
Okay, so when is the book about the adventures coming?
I
Yes.
don't know. My next book is I've been actually super busy with the publicity campaign for this one, Highway
Uh-huh.
to the Sky, but I've got about 34,000 words
Awesome.
nicely written, and then I've got some kind of bare bones stories, and the next this book, I think I'm going to call it Maya Loom, which means Maya Land, again
Uh-huh.
about what happened after flying and how I wound up being in Mexico and
Yeah.
what I was doing. I was working as a scuba dive master, and I worked as the scuba dive manager and dive master, and then I was also living in, I guess you'd call it, the barrio with the Maya, in
Wow.
in one of the little rural areas. Even though I was
That's
working in
awesome.
a dive shop, catering to tourists, mostly from America, but also from Canada, mostly North
Oh,
America.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was great. And so I just kind of branched out. I wanted to travel to the Maya archaeological sites, Chichen Itza, Tikal, Tulum, and I did probably a lot more than that, but those are ones that people have typically heard of if you're going to that area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I branched out into actually living in the homes with the Maya people, which was fabulous. It was really an eye opener to see how really fortunate we are. I mean, yes, I knew we were fortunate,
Mm-hmm.
but how really fortunate we are.
Right.
Um, and I could just as easily have been born in a remote village without running water or
Right.
Mm-hmm.
electricity or medical services, and no real education because the villages are rural. They get not the top of the crop teachers.
Wow.
They're graduate teachers. They do have a teaching degree, but it's sort of the last what is it? It's not a desirable, not considered a desirable opportunity for
Uh-huh.
Wow.
graduating teachers because it is incredibly remote, and they're also being taught. So, for example, in Belize, um, they'll be taught in English or possibly like a Creole, a
Mhm.
Garifuna, but their first languages are not English or
Right.
Creole, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So their first language is Mopan or Kekchi, or in the northern part is Yucatecan. So it's really difficult. So they're undereducated, underrepresented, but it was a fabulous experience. I mean, just a beautiful village. I'll never forget coming over the hill on this rickety old bus that took, I don't know, I'd have to look up, maybe an hour and 20 minutes to go 20 kilometers, the mountain roads.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
They went nice and slow. I wasn't scared, but they went nice and slow. We come over the last hill, and there's this beautiful village with towering Kohun palm trees and a little river running through it, and these beautiful homes with the thatched roofs. I was enchanted from the minute I stepped off
Oh,
the bus.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's
Wow.
awesome.
it
it is.
was great.
Yes. Now, I know we want to give you a minute to read a sample, but I also don't want to hog our
Oh, don't worry
the
about
time.
it. At this point, we're good.
Yeah,
I
okay.
did.
So, yes, we do we want to give the authors, platforms to share their work, and we often say that no one tells a story like the author does.
Well,
Mhm.
So,
thank
to
you.
hear it from you,
All
that
right.
would be a treat.
All right. Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my
Uh-huh.
treat for sure. All right. So I'm just going to read in a couple pages. It's about the time I went solo, which is an accomplishment that if the listeners decide to take flying lessons and you get as far as first solo, I mean, you will never forget it. It's just fabulous. So finally, we're airborne. And after two touch and goes, Sandy, my instructor, points to the first taxiway. Pull off there. We're a long way from the flight school, so I ask, here? I'm leaving you. Sandy beams a dimpled smile. In fact, if you feel good after the standard one circuit takeoff and landing, then you should go to the practice area. And I had changed schools. I changed instructors. I changed airplanes. So I really had a lot more experience than just um, a student who'd stayed at the same school and did maybe 15 hours. So I'm more than ready. I've flown 3 different models of aircraft designed by 2 different manufacturers with 2 different engines, 4 instructors, 2 schools, and in 2 different geographic regions. This diversity means I'm far from being a typical student who's flown at one school on one type of aircraft with 1 or 2 instructors. This also means I could write your guide to extremely expensive flight training. I turn toward the runway and mentally prepare to launch myself into the air. A gentle breath flutters the windsock, a silky cone of orange and white stripes. The sock ruffles and trembles, then falls flaccid, clinging like a dancer to the rigid metal pole. Cirrus clouds stretch like palomino manes across the azure sky. A pale gold sun, high in the late morning sky, spears the earth with summer heat. My heart thumps. A flash of heat creeps across my skin. Sweat tickles my burning cheeks. Glittering droplets of perspiration twinkle from the coal black control column. I scour the sky section by section, searching for aircraft without radios and therefore unable to report their arrival. Before moving on to the runway, I make a radio broadcast to warn radio-equipped pilots that this is my first solo. Beware. And I hope my voice radiates confidence. I nudge the plane forward, moving in continuous motion from the narrow taxiway onto the 200-foot wide, mile-long asphalt runway, a black gash of civilization sliced through a conifer forest. I scan the runway, a gleaming oasis in the heat, and the area beside the runway for wandering moose munching grass. I look at my hand on the throttle, unable to believe this is me checking the instruments, searching for conflicting aircraft, broadcasting over the radio, and taxiing onto the runway. This is the new me, transformed into someone different, someone about to prove her life has meaning. But part of me wants to turn back and cancel the flight. But I slide the throttle plunger toward the dashboard. The engine revs, my brain hums with excitement and fear. Though flying has taught me that fear is normal and reasonable people should be fearful when faced with a reason to fear, I've also learned that panic is abnormal and counterproductive. If an emergency occurs, I must not panic. I must rely on my minimal aviation experience. Inspired by the confidence of my instructors, I accelerate to full power. But without 200 pounds of male instructor weighing me down, the takeoff roll is much shorter than I expect. Seconds after acceleration, my 1,400-pound aircraft leaps into the air, screaming for the ultramarine beyond. I jump with surprise. The plane feels as light as a barnstormer's silk scarf. The sky becomes my playground. My body vibrates like a tuning fork. Memories of childhood flood my conscience. I feel as exhilarated as 4-year-old me zooming down the sidewalk on my tricycle, a sparkling blue, 3-wheeled miracle. Tinsel stripes stream from my handle grips, flash in the sunlight, and create an illusion of great speed. Unshackled from fettered footfall, nothing had electrified me more than gliding downhill, feet off the pedals, legs outstretched, in control. That is, until now, until flying in control of an aircraft. A shiver of unbridled joy ripples through my body. 10 weeks ago, not only could I not perform these actions, but I was also unaware they existed. I remembered when any one of these tasks seems unsurmountable, but now I can do several simultaneously, as if they've always been familiar, as if I've always been a pilot. My shoulders tingle with joy. Today's accomplishment is a landmark in my life, a sea change to define me and mold my idea of me, and what I can achieve when I find the courage to believe in me.
All right, all right, all right.
Love it.
Yay! Get the book, everybody. Get the book, get the book.
Here we go.
Yay.
Good. Yes.
Hold that up again, Lola, please.
Yes, of course.
Yay!
love
What
that
am I doing there?
private
Very long way. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
I love that picture.
And there I am. Yeah, this was I was in the Yukon in Whitehorse, and I was doing a week-long dog mushing course, and I had a great time, but I had a day or two left over. And so I thought, oh, I think I'd like to go flying. And so I needed a checkout because you can't just, even if you're a licensed pilot, you can't just walk into an airport you've never been to and say, give me your airplane, here's my money. It doesn't work that way. Way too expensive. But you'll look at, it's actually, the registration is a real registration, and right here it says Alcan Air, and this is the real airplane. I did get permission to actually use it with their name on it. The only thing that isn't real, well, they added the Northern Lights because we're in
Yeah.
Canada, and they added my feet because the person who took the photo, and I didn't notice either, cut off my feet. So my feet are AI.
Oh.
But other than that, it's not AI. This is a real photo, and
Oh.
yeah, it was great. And I mean, we when I looked at it, I thought I looked at my face. Oh, I look okay.
Absolutely amazing.
It is. It
Amazing.
is.
I tell you what, we are. This is this has been one of the fastest shows.
Yes.
ever.
Yes.
We've just been hanging on your every word, Lola, and it has been a delight. I mean,
Thank you.
when I think of, and we talked about it a little bit before you came on air, I can't. I don't know. It just does something to me when I meet people who know at an early age what they want to be and what they want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I am way older than 6, and I still don't know what I want to do and what I want to be. But to know at that young age and to have just followed this path of adventure is just, I tell you, I could sit and listen to you read and just talk about your adventures and the things that you have done. And even though you may have done them afraid,
Right.
there
Yeah.
was courage that you had and a tenacity that you had to say
Right.
nothing is going to stop me from doing this.
Yeah.
Eventually, it did take me a while, but I did sort of skip ahead. I guess maybe I should have read it. One of there were two TV shows I loved when I was a child. They were both in reruns by the time I got to them, but one of them was Sky King,
Yes,
and
I remember
yes,
speaking.
yeah, and she was it was, his name was Skylar King, and he flew around Arizona, saving. He was a wealthy rancher. He flew his twin engine around Arizona, and he would sort of be like sort of someone to the rescue, when the cops needed somebody. And his niece Penny was also a licensed pilot who'd been tested by the same authorities that Sky King, her uncle, was tested, but she rarely flew the airplane.
Oh wow.
And the series was written in the 50s, I think,
Oh.
as a nod, in the early 50s, I think, as a nod to the women who did fly in World War II. And they flew all kinds of airplanes that the men flew, but they flew them in America and in Canada and in Britain and over to Britain as well. They did ferry flying, and these were these civilian volunteers. And they flew all kinds of airplanes that were new airplanes going to training bases. They were going from one training base to another training base. Some cases they needed maintenance. So they would fly them from one maintenance base to another maintenance base, or from wherever they crashed or landed. Maybe not crashed, but landed, and then they would pick them up and fly them to the military base. So they did tremendous work, but they were still considered like auxiliary. They weren't given their full credit, which is
Right.
really amazing. But again, that was the mindset. And so I think Penny was written like that as well. She was there. Yes, women could fly. In fact, in 1964, Jerry Mock flew around the world, and she was the first woman to fly around the world. And she was called the Flying Housewife.
Oh,
And yes,
wow.
it's true that she was
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's true that she was married, but and she had 3 boys, I believe.
Oh,
But she
yeah.
also studied aeronautical or engineering, pardon me, at universities. So it was always kind of downplayed, and we don't want to
Yeah.
give them too much credit. Although, interestingly enough, when she landed in Saudi Arabia, the people at the airport were all men, of course, and they
course.
were astonished that a woman had landed, and they looked inside for the male pilot. But to their credit, when they realized it was her, they just gave her a standing ovation,
Oh,
and they
my
were just
Oh,
goodness.
okay.
absolutely
Wow.
thrilled. Yeah, but and then my other hero, and this is kind of weird, I think, was Lloyd Bridges in Sea Hunt. And so I grew up and become a scuba dive master. I mean, how weird is that? So, the power of the media is amazing.
Yeah.
I just love both those shows. I guess they were, it was the adventure in me, even at age 4 or whatever. I love those shows. And I guess I watched other, cartoons and stuff too, but I love, those are my favorite shows. And that's why I think it's so important to, do these outreach presentations, to do presentations to schools. You just never know when you're going to inspire somebody.
Exactly.
And the strangest time I ever inspired somebody, in 2018, I summited Kilimanjaro. And about the same time, another woman from Toronto also summited Kilimanjaro. We didn't meet. We were a day or 2 apart, but we're back home. We're posting on Facebook, and somehow we got linked. And so she's actually from the Philippines, and her niece at the time was 6 years old, and her niece also wanted to be a pilot.
Wow.
But she didn't know any female pilots, and I guess there aren't many female pilots in the Philippines at all. And she's a little girl, right?
Right.
So her aunt, my friend Paz, said, "I just met a female pilot," and believe it or not, her parents went out and they bought her a pilot uniform, and they did this great little video. They did this great video, and she sent it to me. And she's the captain, and she's the 6-year-old, right? She's saying, the weather outside is pretty good, but sit back, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your flight.
Oh.
Oh my goodness, she's so cute. So I just, you just never know when what you're saying is going to resonate with you. So
Exactly.
yeah, and we have this saying in aviation, at least as female pilots, is you can't be what you can't see.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
it's hard to imagine, right? I mean, if you've always lived, let's say, it's a little bit different now with the internet. It's a lot bit different with the internet, but if you lived in a little village and you didn't have access to a lot of media, you might think it perfectly normal that you would just grow up and get married, whether you're male or female, and get a local job and start having children. But the world is so big, there are so many opportunities, and I think we're realizing that now too, thanks to the internet. I think it's great.
Exactly.
I'm meeting you ladies, right? I mean,
okay. Well, Lola, I have a question for you. We're at the end. We're at the end. We don't want to, but we got to. Besides, I get the book. How can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you or connect with you if they have any questions or just want to follow you?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Those are the big ones. I also have a website, lolareedallen.com, just like on the screen here, lolareedallen.com.
Okay.
And the book is available. I won't say wherever books are sold, because not every bookstore is going to be carrying it.
Right.
But it is available by Simon & Schuster in Canada, Simon & Schuster in America, Amazon.com, Amazon.ca. For Canadian listeners, indigo.ca. That's our largest independent bookstore, or chain bookstore, I guess, but still smallish. Yeah, and you can order it from your local independent bookstore. Oh, it's also available on Kindle or Kobo.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Get the
yeah.
book, you guys. We weren't able to get into everything, but you You would want to have this on your shelf.
Oh, thank you. Get the book. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yes, well, thank you. And please, my email is lola@lolareedallen.com. Yeah, send me an email. Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, Lola, I
Thank you.
tell you, it has been a delight. It has been it's interesting that one of our favorite chapters was Ode to Joy.
Yes.
And this has been a joy. We
Yes,
have
Thank
absolutely.
you. Thank
really
you.
just
It's
loved.
been my pleasure. I've had a wonderful time.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
I
Thank
would love to have you come back again at some point, and we're just going to call that episode "The Adventures of Lola Reed Allen."
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Absolutely. I would love to.
One more small question. How's
Yeah.
Brandon? How's Brandon?
Oh, that's a different story, actually.
But he's all right.
You got to get the book to
I
understand.
know, yeah. You just left me hanging. I have so many questions.
Oh gosh. Well, I have time if you. I don't know what your listeners.
Oh, we got to go. Unfortunately.
Okay.
That's at the top of the list for the next time.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you, listeners, and thank you, viewers. We
Yes.
hope that you have had as much fun as we have had tonight.
Yes.
Yes, I've had a great time. Thank you so much.
Oh, Lola is not without a story to share. I mean, she is one of the most adventurous people I think we have ever had on the program. It has just been a joy, Lola, and thank you. We will be replaying this episode this coming Saturday at 7 p.m. So if you have friends who have not, who were not on tonight or you couldn't share with, please encourage them to join the broadcast or the replay on Saturday at 7 p.m. Ruth, you have a message for everybody?
I should have let you finish. Yeah, no, outside of the replay, would also be uploaded to our YouTube channel, as well as a podcast midweek. So find us on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, search for Authors Up Show or Authors Up, or you can email us at authorsup@gmail.com if you have any questions or if you're interested in becoming a guest.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Ruth. Thank you, Victoria. Lola, our hats off to you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your book and sharing part of your life, because you have really, really had an amazing life and an amazing journey. So we look forward to having you come on again.
My pleasure.
Everybody, I hope you got us on your calendar, 7 p.m. on Sunday evening. You never, ever, ever, ever know what's going to happen when you tune in. So just be prepared. Come on back next Sunday, 7 p.m. and we'll be glad to share again. Don't forget, look for the news about the book club.
Yes.
And that's a new journey that we are starting. So that's it tonight. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a wonderful week.
Night.